Okay, suffer me this, indulge me this. The other night, Ernestine and I were out having dinner here in LA with some friends of ours. And as the Academy Awards approached, I was asked at dinner, out of the blue, to name my all-time top 10 movies. Huh? My top 10? I got to tell you, over dinner, I really struggled with this. I mean, I love Die Hard. I've made it clear. Great Christmas movie. I could watch Die Hard tonight for the 877th time, but all-time top 10 movie? No. Now, I can recite just about every line from Anchorman and Caddyshack right up at the top of my all-time comedy list. But all-time top 10 movies? Sorry, I just can't. So allow me to potentially waste your time with my all-time top 10 movies. It's possible you'll lose respect for me, however little respect you had for me in the first place. It's also possible, given your age, maybe your knowledge of the cinema, you might even gain a touch of respect for me. I don't know. And frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. That's a Clark Gable to Vivian Lee line from Gone with the Wind, which did not make my all-time top 10. So here goes. I'm going to go from number 10 down to number 1. Drum roll. Now, I did consider Die Hard, considered it hard for number 10, along with several Hitchcock films, Rear Window and Psycho. I saw Psycho once in the theater, and I still haven't recovered from seeing Psycho in the theater. But Hitchcock's movies are like little ditties to me. They're clever little ditties. They're not all-time top 10-ish. So for me, number 10, you ready for this, is Passion of the Christ. That's Mel Gibson's real, raw, dark, haunting, bloody depiction of the capture, the mock trial, the torture, and the crucifixion of Jesus. It was called by Entertainment Weekly the most controversial movie ever made. Jim Caviezel as Jesus is spectacular. Monica Bellucci is Mary Magdalene. Extraordinary. They speak Aramaic. They had to learn Aramaic for the movie. It's all subtitled. It's in Aramaic. I watch it every Easter and find it increasingly riveting. Number 9. This is my all-time favorite Western, by far. I'm talking about Sam Peckinpah's Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, starring Chris Christopherson and James Coburn, and featuring Bob Dylan as Alias in the movie, and featuring his song Knocking on Heaven's Door as the theme song for the movie. It also has every great cowboy character actor you have ever seen in any cowboy movie: Slim Pickens, Chill Wills, Jack Elam, Dub Taylor, Harry Dean Stanton. I could go on and on. This is what the Old West was really all about. And you've probably never even heard of this movie, if I have my guess. Sam Peckinpah was a genius. And this is even better than his more famous cowboy bloodbath, The Wild Bunch. This movie has more heart and more tragic soul, more death of the West soul, along with plenty of slow motion Peckinpah blood. Ernestine and I have 3 pieces of artwork from this movie hanging on our living room walls as I speak. She loves it almost as much as I do. Christopherson is a stud as the kid. Number 8, The Hustler from 1961, starring Paul Newman as a pool hustler called Fast Eddie Felson, and Jackie Gleason as his arch rival, Minnesota Fats, and George C. Scott as a nasty, evil villain, one of the nastiest ever. Parts of this movie are just hard to watch. It's tragic and it's violent. But listen, trust me on this. The final shootout between Fast Eddie and Fats is the single best scene I have ever seen in any movie ever. And I've watched a whole lot of movies in my time. I dare you to watch it and tell me otherwise. This was the great Paul Newman at his man's man greatest. Get chills just talking about it. Number 7, Blazing Saddles. The only comedy in my top 10. This is from 1974, but it was way, way, way ahead of its time in scathing racial and racist commentary. Script was written in part by the great Richard Pryor. This was the one Mel Brooks comedy that really mattered. But it is a comedy. It is fall down funny from start to finish. Cleavon Little as a black sheriff in the Old West. Gene Wilder as a broken down gunslinger alcoholic called the Waco Kid. Alex Karras, the former Detroit Lion football player, as Mongo. With an all-time inspired movie within a movie ending at the legendary Grauman's Chinese Theater out here in Hollywood. What? Trust me, inspired from first scene to final. Number 6, Annie Hall. Because Woody Allen's genius just has to be represented in my all-time top 10. It could be Manhattan or Husbands and Wives or Crimes and Misdemeanors, Midnight in Paris. Something from Woody has to be in my all-time top 10, but I will take 1977's Best Picture winner, in which Diane Keaton won for Best Actress and Woody won for Best Director. It's just so clever, so life smart. Rare gem. Number 5, The Graduate, 1967. The great Mike Nichols won for Best Director. It's Dustin Hoffman as Benjamin caught in a wicked Pasadena crossfire between an overpoweringly seductive mother, nailed by Anne Bancroft, Mrs. Robinson, and her daughter that Benjamin badly wants to marry. The final scene in which Benjamin wrecks Elaine's wedding ceremony at this church is, trust me on this, it's all time, along with an epic soundtrack by Simon and Garfunkel. Number 4 is Training Day, 2001. Denzel, of course, won Best Actor. Ethan Hawke nominated for supporting. The great Antoine Fuqua directed. Snoop had a small but memorably impactful role. And this is how much Training Day impacted me. It's so intense that after I saw it on the big screen in the theater, I was never able again to watch it on cable. It's just too intense. I just want it to sit in my psyche where I can savor it. I don't need to see it again. I saw it once and it deeply affected me, and I want it to live forever in my psyche just the way I saw it on the big screen. Denzel is such a good man in real life who is he just so convincingly plays such a bad guy in this movie. Shockingly corrupt cop who played God in the neighborhoods he patrolled. Now that was acting at the highest level. Number 3 is Casablanca. Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, movie stars of the highest order. And their sad story of wrong place, wrong time, love plays against the backdrop of the Nazi occupation in Paris. It climaxes the final sacrifice that Bogey makes at the airport as Ingrid's about to escape on a flight out to Lisbon from Casablanca. Classic song as time goes by, classic lines. Here's looking at you, kid. And of all the gin joints and all the towns and all the world, she walks into mine. Play it again, Sam, which is actually just play it, Sam. They don't make them like Casablanca anymore. I've probably watched it, 30 times. Number 2. You might laugh at this one, but I don't. The Wizard of Oz, 1939. It's a kids' movie for adults. Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. Is it a concussion dream suffered by Dorothy during a tornado? Or did she actually really recruit a team of misfits to defeat the Wicked Witch in Oz, the ultimate underdog story? Those flying monkey men, they still scare me. Scared me when I was a kid, scare me as an adult. Toto, Dorothy's dog, finally does expose the wizard as a fraud, false prophet. There are lots of those out in the real world. Yet the wizard does convince the Cowardly Lion and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow. They already had courage. They already had heart. They already had brains. The Wizard of Oz gets me every time I watch it. I could watch it tonight and be moved by it. Does Judy Garland ever play it with courage and heart and brains? Which brings me to my all-time number one movie, drumroll, Chinatown, 1974. This was the last big movie star movie Hollywood ever made. This is a bigger, even better Casablanca with far more provocative plot twists from a script mostly rewritten and directed by Roman Polanski. This was Jack Nicholson and Faye Dunaway at the height of their legendary big screen magic and magnitude, just dripping with power and sex appeal. These were the ultimate movie stars of their times, of any times. They're making the ultimate Hollywood movie that revolves around incest and stealing the precious water supply in 1930s Los Angeles. Nicholson nearly gets his nose cut off. The bad guy ultimately wins. Tragic ending because, well, it had to end that way. I highly recommend a book that was recently written about this movie called The Big Goodbye, Chinatown and its last year, and the last years of Hollywood. Chinatown and the last years of Hollywood. I highly recommend Chinatown if you've never seen it. The other day I was running on the treadmill. I was flipping around trying to find something to get me through the hour. And there it was, Chinatown. And Ernestine walked by the treadmill and said to me, "You're watching Chinatown again?" I just might watch it tonight.